Far out in the open Atlantic, where the horizon blurs between sky and sea, enormous trawlers carve their way through the waves. These are not ordinary boats. They are floating fortresses, each stretching more than 100 meters long, equipped with engines that never seem to sleep. On board, dozens of men live for weeks, sometimes months, chasing schools of fish that migrate with the seasons and ocean currents. For them, the ocean is both a workplace and a battleground. Every trip is a gamble with weather, luck, and survival. The process begins long before a single fish is caught. The captain and his crew study charts, currents, and satellite data, then scan the water with radar and sonar. Years of experience combined with modern technology to find the elusive masses of herring, sardines, cod, or mackerel that gather in cold waters. A false reading wastes hours, fuel, and energy, so precision is everything. Once the signal of a giant school is confirmed, the mood on board shifts instantly. Shouts echo across the deck. Men run to their positions. The crew prepares for the moment they've been waiting for. Massive steel cables unwind, stretching out for kilometers. Attached at the end is the real weapon of the voyage. A trawl net so vast its opening is wider than a football field. Lowered carefully into the water, it sinks like a colossal underwater funnel. As the engines roar, the ship tows the net, steadily dragging it near the seabed. The net behaves like a giant living creature, mouth open, sweeping forward, channeling everything in its path into its belly. Every sailor knows that the success of this operation depends on balance. Too much speed and the net tears. Too slow and the fish escape. Minutes stretch into hours. The cables strain under immense pressure, groaning like iron under siege. Sailors watch, waiting for the signal. The weight builds slowly. First a tremor, then a pull, then a crushing force that bends metal and tests the limits of the winches. This is the moment of truth. If the net holds what they hope, it could mean hundreds of tons of fish in a single haul. If it doesn't, it's just wasted fuel and lost time. At last, the catch surfaces. The ocean boils with silver bodies as the net breaks through. The sight is breathtaking, tons of fish surging together, glistening under the sun, their scales flashing like coins, scattered across the sea. The deck transforms into a river of life. Mackerel as thick as a man's arm, sardines glittering like pearls, and cod heavy as logs tumble onto the steel floor. The sound is overwhelming. The roar of engines, the crash of waves, the hiss of hydraulic cranes, and the thunder of thousands of fish thrashing in unison. It's chaos, but to the crew, it's music. No time is wasted. Conveyor belts roar to life, carrying fish from deck to the processing lines inside the ship. Specialized machines slice, gut, and clean in seconds what once took hours of hand labor. Workers in heavy gloves and waterproof suits sort the catch, separating large species from small ones, sending each batch to its designated hold. Smaller fish are often packed straight into brine tanks to preserve freshness. Larger ones are filleted or beheaded and then flash frozen at -40°C. Nothing is left to chance. At sea, freshness equals survival. Some hauls yield 200 tons, others 300. And on rare, lucky days, more than 400 tons flood onto the deck. That's enough fish to supply entire markets and factories for weeks. But not every throw of the net brings such bounty. Sometimes, after hours of straining, the catch is only a few meager tons. The ocean gives generously, but it also withholds without warning. The men accept this reality. They cast again and again, chasing hope on the endless waves. Life on board one of these trawlers is a world of its own. The men and women who work here live by the rhythm of the sea, not the clock. Shifts run 12 to 18 hours at a time, sometimes through the night, sometimes through the storm. When the ship is rolling in winds so fierce that the waves reach 10 meters high, the crew strap themselves to safety lines to avoid being swept overboard. Sleep is light and fragmented, always ready to be broken by alarms from the radar or the cry that a school of fish has been spotted. The bunks are narrow, the air heavy with salt and diesel, and yet the moment the net is ready, everyone leaps to their feet. Danger is constant. A single misstep on the slick steel deck can be deadly. The cables pulling the nets weigh tens of tons. If one snaps it, lashes out with the force of a whip that can cut through anything in its path. Storms can roll in without warning, forcing the ship to turn against the wind and ride out the fury of the ocean. On the worst nights, fishermen have to lie down in full gear, bracing themselves in case the ship tilts too far. And yet there's a deep sense of loyalty among the crew. They watch out for one another. They know survival depends on trust as much as strength. The bond is built not just through work, but through small daily rituals. Meals are simple, but precious: hot rice, fried fish, pickled vegetables, steaming bowls of noodles. They eat together, laugh at jokes, and share stories of families waiting for them back home. A handshake after a successful catch, a pat on the shoulder after a near miss. These are the gestures that hold the crew together. When the deck overflows with fish, the fatigue vanishes. They shout, they cheer. And in that moment, exhaustion is replaced by pride. Technology keeps the operation alive. Deep freezers below deck hum relentlessly at minus 50 degrees, preserving thousands of tons of fish in conditions harsher than the Arctic. Inside those freezers, the fish are layered, carefully stacked on pallets and sealed in blocks of ice. This is the reason a trawler can stay at sea for weeks, even months, and still deliver fish as fresh as the moment they were caught. Without these systems, all the hard labor on deck would be for nothing. But the sea is never fully predictable. Some seasons bring schools so dense that nets burst with hundreds of tons. Other seasons, currents shift, fish scatter, and ships return almost empty. For every story of abundance, there is one of frustration, and yet the unpredictability is part of the draw. Fishermen say it is like chasing treasure hidden under waves. Sometimes you find gold. Sometimes you find nothing, but the chase itself keeps you coming back. When the voyage finally ends, the return to port is as intense as the days at sea. The ship radios ahead, alerting the port authorities and the waiting logistics teams. By the time the vessel approaches the dock, refrigerated trucks are already lined up in long rows, cranes are positioned, and workers prepare for a night that will run without pause. The unloading begins immediately. Frozen blocks of fish crash onto the concrete floor, ice shattering into clouds of mist. The cold air rolls across the port like fog. Every movement is urgent, there's no room for delay. Quality depends on speed, and every minute counts. Each pallet is tagged, weighed, and logged. Forklifts swarm like ants carrying the cargo from ship to warehouse. Some fish go directly into processing plants where they are filleted, canned, or portioned for supermarkets. Others are packed in export containers bound for Europe, Asia, or America. A single ship's haul can supply multiple markets at once, feeding millions of people. The entire port becomes a living machine. Trucks moving in lines, lights cutting through the night paperwork, and electronic scans, ensuring every ton is accounted for. For the fishermen, this moment is both relief and pride. After weeks of fighting storms and wrestling with nets, they see the result of their labor rolling off the deck into the global food chain. They know that the salmon fillet on a family's dinner table in New York, the canned sardines on a supermarket shelf in Tokyo, or the cod served in a European bistro may have come from their ship. That knowledge carries a deep sense of purpose. Yet in the middle of all this activity, there is also reflection. The ocean is not infinite. Stocks of fish rise and fall. Climate change shifts, currents alter spawning grounds and bring storms that are stronger and more frequent. Some governments now require tracking devices on every trawler reporting each catch and location to ensure compliance with quotas. New nets are designed to release undersized fish, reducing bycatch. Many captains have learned to adjust their methods not only for efficiency, but for sustainability. Because without careful management, the sea will one day give nothing back. Still, the attraction of the ocean never fades. For seasoned sailors, the port is just a pause. They visit their families, embrace their children, sleep without the sound of engines for a few nights. But before long, they are back at the docks. Backpacks slung over their shoulders, ready to sign on for another voyage. The sea calls them, and they answer not because it is easy, but because it is who they are. Fishermen by blood, by choice, by necessity. The cycle continues season after season, year after year. The trawlers leave in search of the next school of fish. The men and women on board prepare to endure the hardship, once more driven by the same force that has always defined life at sea, the unyielding desire to wrest a living from the vast, unpredictable ocean. Life on board a trawler is shaped by routine, yet nothing about it feels ordinary. The days blend into nights, and the rhythm of the sea sets the pace for everything. When the nets are in the water, everyone is on high alert. When the nets are lifted, the deck explodes with activity, shouting machinery, grinding water, splashing. Once the catch is secured and sent to the freezer, the crew finally has a chance to breathe, eat, and rest. Meals are simple, but deeply satisfying after hours of labor bowls of hot soup, trays of rice, or pasta fried fish straight from the sea, and jars of pickles brought from home. In those moments, the cold fades and the exhaustion eases, replaced by laughter jokes and the warmth of camaraderie. In the cramped cabins below deck, sleep is brief and shallow. Bunks shake with the vibration of the engines, and sometimes heavy waves crash against the hull, jolting men awake. Alarms ring when the sonar detects new schools of fish, pulling the crew from rest back to duty in seconds. No one complains, it is part of the deal. Out here, patience and endurance are as vital as strength. Each hour at sea is an opportunity, and no one is willing to waste it. Storms, however, remind everyone of nature's dominance. Winds rise without warning, waves grow into mountains, and rain lashes the deck like needles. In those hours, safety becomes the only priority. Crew members secure ropes, lock hatches, and strap themselves down, waiting out the fury of the ocean. The ship groans and tilts, yet always pushes forward. When dawn finally breaks and the storm passes, the sea becomes calm again, as if nothing had happened. These moments forge resilience and respect in understanding that the ocean is not just a provider, but also a force that demands humility. Despite the hardships, there is pride in the work. Every frozen pallet lifted into the hold, every container shipped to the world is proof that their sacrifices matter. Each fish represents food for families across continents and livelihoods for the crew's own families waiting on shore. That knowledge transforms fatigue into determination. They are not just catching fish, they are sustaining an entire chain of life. At night, when work slows for a few hours, the deck becomes a place of reflection. Under the high-pressure lights surrounded by endless water and sky, sailors sip hot tea and share stories. They talk about storms that nearly sank them, about record catches that fed entire ports, about the families waiting at home. These conversations weave bonds stronger than steel cables, bonds that last long after the voyage ends. And so the trawlers keep going trip after trip, season after season. Each departure is filled with hope, each return with relief and pride. The work is hard, the risks are real, but the ocean always calls them back. For these fishermen, the sea is more than a workplace. It is a way of life, a legacy carried in every net, every wave, and every story told in the quiet hours between storms. When the trawler finally turns its bow toward the coast, the mood shifts. After weeks at sea, the sight of land feels almost unreal. The ship radios ahead, notifying the port authorities, refrigeration teams, and logistics companies. By the time the vessel approaches the harbor, the dock is already alive with movement. Cranes stand ready, refrigerated trucks line up, and workers prepare to unload the treasure from the ocean. As the hatch opens, the cold breath of the deep freezer pours out, and pallets of frozen fish are hoisted one after another onto the quay. Each block of fish, carefully packed and preserved at -50 degrees Celsius, represents the labor of countless hours under storm and spray. The work on land mirrors the urgency at sea. Everything must move quickly to maintain freshness, to keep the supply chain flowing, to meet the expectations of buyers across the globe. Factories and processing plants nearby ignite into action. Conveyor belts slice fillet and package the catch into forms ready for supermarkets and restaurants in Asia, Europe, and America. The efficiency is staggering. Within a single day, fish that were swimming in the Atlantic are already on their way to markets halfway across the world. For the sailors, seeing their catch transformed into neatly packed boxes is a reminder that their work sustains millions of meals. After unloading, the ship undergoes maintenance. Engines are inspected, nets repaired, fuel tanks refilled, the refrigeration systems are checked, cabins cleaned, and supplies restocked. The break is brief, but precious. The fishermen return home for a few days, spending time with their families, eating home-cooked meals, and sleeping in silence without the vibration of engines. Yet even as they enjoy the comfort of land, the sea continues to call. Bags are packed again, goodbyes are exchanged, and the cycle begins anew. This relentless rhythm defines their lives. Offshore fishing is not simply a job. It is a test of endurance, a heritage passed from one generation to the next. The young learn from the old, absorbing lessons of patience, skill, and respect for the ocean. Each voyage adds new stories. Storms survived, record catches made, friendships forged. The sea is cruel, but it also gives back to those who face it with humility and persistence. In the end, the trawlers are more than machines, and the catches more than numbers. They are symbols of humanity's connection with the ocean, of our ability to harness its abundance while remembering its power. Each net cast is a gamble with the unknown, but also a promise to bring food to tables, to support families, and to carry forward the legacy of seafaring. And so the ships depart again, chasing the horizon, carrying the hopes of those who believe that life, though harsh at sea, is full of meaning.